Regrets, regrets, regrets. We've all experienced them at one time or another, whether we didn't follow through on a promise or simply made a mistake. The feeling of regret is universal and can be painful and crippling. But why do we experience this emotion in the first place? What exactly is the psychology behind regrets? Firstly, there's a temporal theory of regret. To analyze this theory, let's compare regrets due to action, that is, making a mistake, versus inaction or not following through on a promise or goal. The temporal theory of regret states that inaction-based regrets last longer than action-based regrets. Additionally, action-based regrets tend to be less frequent and more intense. Let me give you an example. If you go out and spend too much on dinner, an action that you took, you may have intense feelings of regret over the next few days, but you certainly won't be thinking about this for years to come. On the other hand, if you avoid going back to school, an action that you didn't take, you may likely regret this in the long run. One possibility for this is that regret due to actions can be compensated by new opportunities that occur over time, whereas the feeling of regret due to inaction increases with time. Essentially, although you'll likely be more emotionally affected temporarily from doing something you regret, the regret from not pursuing something you desire has a much greater chance of persisting for years. So here's my advice for you. If there's something that you really want to do and have been avoiding taking action on, just do it. Even if it doesn't go as planned, you'll feel better acting on that decision than if you had never made a decision at all. The second theory is the social comparison theory of regret. This theory suggests that we compare ourselves to others, and if we don't measure up, we experience regret. This could be anything from not having as much money or success as somebody else, to not looking as attractive or being as talented. Let's say you just purchased a car, and your friend later bought the same car, but at a lower price. You may experience feelings of regret because you paid too much for the car and wish that you had gotten the same deal as your friend. The comparison can also be within yourself. For example, if you compare yourself to a previous version of yourself, such as when you were younger or more successful. This type of regret is more prevalent in cultures where there is a strong emphasis on achievement and success. Always take a moment to analyze your feelings of regret and think about why you're feeling this way. What could you have done differently? Would it really have made a difference in the end? Number 3, the decision justification theory of regret. This theory suggests that people regret the choices they made when the outcome is worse than expected. In this case, the intensity of regret will usually depend on how much you believe the action was justifiable. Here's an example. If you fail an important test that may stop you from graduating university, you'll likely feel much more regret than if you fail a test that didn't impact your grade in any way. Plus, the regret will likely be more intense if the failure resulted from the lack of preparation rather than from unforeseen circumstances. So when it comes to making decisions, take into account potential risk and rewards as well as your own intuition. Number 4, the belonging theory of regret. This theory states that people are more likely to be regretful when a decision threatens their sense of belonging. For instance, you may regret turning down a social invitation from a close friend because it affects your relationship with the friend. Whereas, if it was a person that wasn't very close, you may not feel any regret at all. This is due to the fact that people are more likely to care about actions that compromise their sense of belonging. So remember to trust your instincts and give more consideration to turning down opportunities involving those that are close to you. If you haven't yet, check out this video where I discuss the 6 biggest regrets in life based on research. By the way, have you ever heard about counterfactual thinking? Counterfactual thinking is the process of envisioning alternative realities, and in the context of regret, it means imagining how outcomes could have varied if you had made different decisions. Emotions such as regrets are actually motivated by counterfactual thinking. Regret is essentially a comparison between what actually happened and what could have been. Here's an interesting fact. Regret was found to be the most positive of 12 negative emotions. Notably, the negative emotions analyzed included anger, anxiety, disappointment, boredom, disgust, fear, frustration, guilt, jealousy, sadness, and shame. This is because regrets allow us to analyze past experiences, avoid unhealthy behaviors, learn more about ourselves, build social bonds through shared negative emotions. Plus, regrets facilitate approach behaviors by motivating us to take action towards our goals. But it's no surprise that the act of self-reflecting can increase feelings of remorse. Frequently experiencing regret may lower life satisfaction since it may be interpreted as a sign of repeated failure. Regrets can also cause anger, hostility, and affect your relationships. Fortunately, there is a way that you can maximize the benefits of regret, and that is by using self-regulatory feelings such as acceptance and forgiveness. So, why do we look back in the first place? There are several plausible explanations. Actually, many psychologists believe that regrets serve an important evolutionary purpose. It helps us learn from our mistakes, which should allow us to improve our behavior in the future. What I do find interesting though is the ability of our memory to rewrite our past. In fact, we tend to look back on our lives with nostalgia, with many memories distorted and misremembered, sometimes even created wholesale. And therein lies the problem. Focusing on things that have already happened doesn't necessarily help us improve our lives in the future. It's much harder to learn from our mistakes when we're stuck in the past because these memories are mostly based on faulty data. Perhaps even more astonishing is the fact that some scholars argue that reflection is not needed to make wise decisions. In fact, some type of self-reflection do not lead to good choices. According to these authors, intuition and experience are much more beneficial. When it comes to regret, there is no simple answer, but perhaps part of the solution is something that has worked for me, looking forward. So the next time you find yourself thinking about your past, don't let that feeling linger. Instead, try to imagine your future self and ask yourself, how will I be in 10 years? Be sure to check out this video if you would like to live a more meaningful life.